Gil Martin here. The Locked On road to the NHL trade deadline continues. The Detroit Red Wings making a move. They send forward Tyler Bertuzzi to the Boston Bruins and get back a protected 2024 first-round pick and a fourth-round pick in 2025. Joining me right now, Scott Bentley of Locked On Red Wings. And Scott, are you pleased with the return that the Wings got in this trade?
Yeah, I'm content with it. I think this is about the value that Brian and I expected somewhat. I know that he's a big fan favorite, and it's going to be a tough sell for the fan base sometimes. But at the end of the day, this is a dude who only recently kind of like returned to the form we expected. He wasn't producing very well earlier on. He's been hurt a ton this season, and he's an expiring UFA like winger, and that's at the end of the day that's gonna kind of diminish the expected return. And so the fact that we were able to get a first for Bertuzzi is fine by me. I'm very pleased with it for sure.
Was there any chance of Bertuzzi re-signing with the Wings?
I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? I think if you would have asked people a month or two ago, then I think you would have probably gotten a different answer. But it really sucks. I don't want to blame everything on the injuries, but it really seemed to kind of derail the season for him. And again, the last couple of weeks, he's finally kind of returned to the usual production that we see from him on a year-to-year basis. But a lot of injuries in the last 3 seasons for Bert, unfortunately. And I think that this year, just not having played very much until about a month ago, maybe hurt him a little bit more than we realized at the time.
So the Red Wings are still fighting for position in the wild card race. How does this trade affect them? And do you think they'll make any other moves between now and Friday's trade deadline?
Well, I think between this and the Hronek trade yesterday, right, I think it's pretty clear that this team is in some sort of sell mode, whether it's complete, just trade everybody that's not, Larkin, Raymond, or Seider, or whether it's just, like, let's take a look at the UFAs and Hronek apparently, and go from there. I think that it's pretty clear that after the Ottawa home and home that they just wrapped up, where they got destroyed on back-to-back nights, that they probably looked in the mirror, and Yzerman probably looked around and said, okay, playoffs not this year. Let's get some draft capital. So I would expect, they're not going to stop trying, obviously, as players. This is their job. I'm not expecting them to have a top 5 pick in the draft or anything next year all of a sudden, but I think that it's the writing is probably on the wall now that the front office expects this team to be on the outside looking in at the end of the season.
So any other players you think that Steve Yzerman could deal by tomorrow's deadline?
Yeah, it's tough because I think a week ago that conversation would have been, Jake Wallman would have been thrown in there and he got extended. So that's probably no longer a thing. But the creativity of dealing Hronek when he still had team control and RFA status and such is definitely makes it a little bit harder to pinpoint. I think maybe an under the radar person to keep an eye on would be like Pius Suter. He's been on a hot streak lately, and I doubt that he's part of like the long-term plans of this team. So maybe that's somebody. But Yzerman runs a tight ship, and it's going to be hard to kind of predict. The Hronek thing was totally out of left field. So a little bit difficult there, but I think if you're looking at easy candidates left, Suter might be towards the top of that list.
All right, it will certainly be interesting to see how this plays out, and be sure to check out Locked On Red Wings for more on this move and all things Detroit Red Wings. And keep it dialed in to Locked On NHL all along the road to the NHL trade deadline. This is the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.